aggressive, full-on assault with all of our players.
A show that focuses on moving our political, social, economic, gender, and cultural conversation forward.
And all of our players means all of our players.
It's Chew's Views. And now, here's your host, Richard Chew.
Good Tuesday morning, progressives, and of course, all the rest. Welcome to the April 14th, 2026 edition of Chew's Views. And that is 773-763-9278. Find my show on Facebook Live, TuneIn Radio, and YouTube. Also broadcasting on AM 950 in Minneapolis, AM 1520 and 103.5 FM from Warren County, North Carolina. A quick shout out to one of our listeners up in Minnesota, Deborah, just to say, hey, thanks for hanging with us and spread the word to all your progressive friends in the community. Email me at richard@wcpt820.com and follow me on X, Instagram, all the socials. Catch our shows, all of them, in fact, by subscribing to our WCPT podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon, iHeartRadio, the good places. I guess they're all good. There you can get Chew's Views, featured interviews, Joan Esposito, live, local, and progressive, the great Patty Vasquez, driving you home, and, of course, It's the Democracy Stupid with Edwin Eisendrath, Out Chicago, and our other great shows and interviews. Make your way over to heartlandsignal.com. Guess what's over there? A couple quick articles about Iowa's cancer rate is 10% above the national average and still rising. A newly reported bit of information and research showing that a lot of it is connected to pesticides. So Patty did a great interview talking about this on her show. So check that out, as well as any of our others that you guys feel are important to share. So make your way over to heartlandsignal.com. Excuse me. And let's see. Oh, yeah. Pay attention, because we've got some great clips that are going to be coming to you right after our first break today. But speaking of breaks, on today's show, and we will be busy. We'll be talking with Daniel DePetris, who is a fellow at the Defense Priorities Foundation, and he's also a Chicago Tribune writer. And we'll be talking about the Gulf states, the war, Trump's impatience, and the failure of negotiation when it comes to what's happening in the Middle East. So Daniel DePetris will be with us in the 6:30 hour. In the 7 o'clock hour, Aaron Kleinman will be joining us. Really looking forward to talking. Haven't talked with Aaron in a little bit. He's the head of research at Heartland Signal and author of the Radio Free America newsletter. So we want to talk to him about his newsletter, all things politics, of course, the Trump, the Iran war. Aaron will have some great commentary there. And then in the 7:30 hour, Justin J. Pearson is a member of the Tennessee House of Delegates, will be with us. He's got an upcoming election. He's running for Congress, and he's got an interesting race, primary particularly. So we'll talk about what MAGA folks down in Tennessee are having to say about a few things and some other state of Tennessee issues politically that are happening there. So stay tuned and get your notebooks out, because we'll be covering some very important topics. You want to make some notes and all the rest, and determine what you want to do with that information. So that's what's happening on today's show, and who's going to be with us. Got some updates that we'll go through with you guys, and of course our Choose Views news when we come back from our first break. But today's question is just try this on, guys. What do you guys think as listeners? What do you think are our biggest failures in American politics when it comes to leadership? So again, what do you guys think as listeners are our biggest leadership failures in American politics? And what are our biggest leadership opportunities? So, two sides of a topic, leadership, and I want to hear what you guys have to say about that. What are our biggest failures when it comes to American politics and leadership, and what are our biggest leadership opportunities? You can send a text to 773-763-9278. You can give us a call, and we'll try to squeeze you in. And you can also go to our Facebook Live, to our Facebook page. It's not a Facebook Live page, it's our Facebook page and you can leave your comments and thoughts there. But we'd like to hear from you. We love getting your observations there, and we try to read them, as you know, when we get them, as we can fit them in. It's always great to get the comments from you guys in the areas that we ask questions, and of course all the other things that we talk about. So what do you guys as listeners think are our biggest leadership failures in American politics, and what are our biggest leadership opportunities? Let me know what you think there. My sense is that you guys are going to have some similar things to speak about there, and then some that might surprise us. So let us know what those happen to be. Today on Live, Local, and Progressive, Joan Esposito will be joined by Bobby Kogan, Senior Director of Federal Budget Policy at the Center for American Progress. Jen Goldbeck, Professor of Computer Scientist and Psychologist, expert in the far-right online extremism. She's going to be talking about AI and the bad things on the internet. So make sure that you check out Joan today. And also David Hochberg will be joining Live, Local, and Progressive weekdays 2 to 5 here on WCPT AM 820, heartlandsignal.com, and tune in. Tonight on Driving It Home, Patty Vasquez will be joined by Megan Parker, RN Living Donor Transplant Coordinator at Loyola Medicine, along with Dr. Kathy Tynes, internist at Levo Health Services, Dennis Goris, political cartoonist, and Nathan Taylor of the Election Truth Alliance. It's Driving It Home with Patty Vasquez weekdays 5 to 7 here on WCPT AM 820, the Heartland Signal website, tune in, YouTube, Facebook. And this show also airs on KTNF AM 950, weeknights 9 to 10 Central Time. Tomorrow on Choose Views, Michelle Peltier will be in for me, and her guests are, of course, our Choose Views contributor, Kurt Mullett from Hoosier Blue 63, and Dr. Kendrick Darchis, Vice President of Outreach and Engagement at the Truth Initiative. Michelle will also be filling in for me on Thursday and Friday, and she'll be talking with, of course, some of our regular folks and a couple of guests that we've got going, got scheduled for the show. And obviously join me weekdays, every weekday, Monday through Friday, 6 to 8 a.m. here on WCPT AM 820 and heartlandsignal.com. Or you can watch a live video stream on Facebook and YouTube. So if you're watching right now, yep, that's me waving. So there you go, guys. Michelle's going to be in the next 3 days. So show her some love with some good calls and all the rest, and let her know that you appreciate her work and her commentary and observations on so many things. And Michelle will be, it'll be great to have her here while I'm out for a couple of days to put some more fresh air in my lungs and get recharged, and then come back next week and be ready to hit the ground running. So a couple of quick things I'll hit on before we go to break, this first break. Well, there's certainly one thing I want to hit on. And I hope I don't get in any trouble with anybody, but if I do, I'll deal with it. Okay. I didn't talk about it yesterday. Sarah and I were going to talk about it, but we decided to check the box and move forward. The situation with Eric Swalwell in California. Let me just hit this real quick. And Gonzalez. I'm gonna speak to it to the same way. This is not a Democratic or a Republican issue. This is a guys being stupid A's issue. Plain and simple. It's turned political because that's what they want it to be. They want it to be, oh, look at how bad the right is. Look at how bad the left is. Nah, this is bad dudes doing stupid stuff. Period. You know, guys that I rolled with over the years, we had a code, Devin. I knew who I could get close to as a guy, who could become a friend of mine as a guy, if I felt like I could trust them with women that I cared about. My mom, my sisters, my cousins, who could take care of themselves, by the way. But I knew that's, as I grew up, that became my code. And I remember a guy put something in a young woman's drink in college. And he and I got into it. We scrabbled, Mike. We did. So I'm not trying to make this about me and defending of women and all that. That's not meant to sound like it may have sounded, and I apologize if it came out that way. It is about this. Guys, raise the standard on yourself. This is not about politics. This is not about left or right. This is about men being dumb A's. When it comes to this, leave women alone. Leave people alone. They don't just don't do it. Don't put yourself in a situation in the first doggone place. It really ticks me off when I see people trying to tap dance around. No, men, straighten yourselves up. This is just stop. If you can't restrain yourself, then don't be around people that you're going to offend and abuse and take advantage of. It's just wrong. And I'm not trying to be some highbrow person in this space. I'm just saying it's wrong. So we're going to take a quick break. 773-763-9278. You're listening to Choose Views on WCPT, AM 820 in Chicago, WAR 1520 AM and 103.5 FM from Warren County, North Carolina, and now AM 950 up there in Minnesota. I'm Richard Chu. We'll be right back. Hey, Progressives, it's Richard Chu, host of Choose Views weekdays 6 to 8 a.m. Central. We're all anxious for the 2026 midterm election to arrive so we can restore some sanity and much-needed oversight to our government. In fact, it's the most important midterm election in American history, and Choose Views will be in the thick of it, bringing you candidate interviews on a regular basis. I'll be talking to Democratic Party hopefuls running for House and Senate at the federal and state level, as well as candidates for governor and other state and local offices.
I am in love with our ability to fight for our rights, to fight for our future, to fight for our freedoms, to fight as our ancestors fought. It's just our moment. This is just our time to stand up and to speak up. We can't give up on this.
If you miss any of the interviews live, you'll be able to find them all on WCPT's candidate interviews page at heartlandsignal.com/candidates. That's Choose Views weekdays from 6 to 8 a.m. on WCPT, Chicago's progressive talk for 20 years.
The best words to hear at the TSA security checkpoint? You're good to go. All it takes is a little preparation. Get to the airport early, bring a carry-on bag that fits in the overhead, and have an acceptable ID. Not all state-issued IDs will cut it. Check out tsa.gov/ID and see which TSA acceptable IDs make the grade, like a real ID or passport.
Before you jet, do a little prep, and you're good to go. Check out tsa.gov/ID or the MyTSA app.
All right, son. Time to put out this campfire.
Dad, we learned about this in school.
Oh, did you now? Okay. What's first?
Smokey Bear said to.
First, drown it with a bucket of water, then stir it with a shovel.
Wow, you sound just like him.
Then he said,
If it's still warm, then do it again.
Where can I learn all this?
It's all on SmokeyBear.com with other wildfire prevention tips. Because only you can prevent wildfires.
Brought to you by the USDA Forest Service, your state forester, and the Ad Council.
Chicago's Progressive Talk, WCPT 820, where facts matter.
It's Choose Views, real talk for real people, just like you. Give us a call now, 773-763-9278. Now, back to Richard Chu.
Hey guys, thanks for being with us this morning. A couple of quick Choose Views news items on this April 14th, 2026. Oil prices rise sharply as U.S. blockades the Straits of Hormuz. Oil prices topped $100 yesterday as the U.S. Navy blockaded Iranian traffic in the Straits, with Iran responding by threatening neighboring ports in the Persian Gulf and Sea of Oman. The blockade was announced Sunday following the failed peace talks in Pakistan to restrict traffic from the Iranian ports. European allies, including the UK, declined to aid in the blockade, which experts say could exacerbate broader supply chain disruptions. Coachella becomes a monetization machine for creators. If Coachella content is flooding your social media feeds, you're not alone. The California Music Festival has become a commercial juggernaut for content creators who leverage brand partnerships for increased visibility and future paid opportunities amid very fierce competition. It also has become a marketing frenzy for companies that pour tens of millions to courting creators and that have big followings. So it's become the influencer Olympics in some ways. Millennials and their struggles are starting to stack up to boomers. What does that mean? Millennials often claim baby boomers had an easier path to financial stability, but a recent analysis from the Wall Street Journal showed otherwise. Data shows that boomers face similar but different financial setbacks in early adulthood that limited financial security, including crushing mortgage rates, steep inflation. Despite rising college tuition and steeper student debt burdens, millennials' average inflation-adjusted household net worth is higher than that of boomers of similar ages. McDonald's is about to launch some energy drinks, y'all, and specialty sodas. So if you are a McDonald's person or not, they're trying to its hand in the beverage market again, other beverages, I should say. Nearly a year after the demise of the Cosmex experience, the world's largest burger chain plans to debut a new line of beverages and menu that includes energy drinks and, quote, dirty sodas, according to the Wall Street Journal. Citing anonymous sources, the drinks will be priced below rival offerings from Starbucks, Dutch Brothers, and other chains. The growing popularity of specialty sodas and energy drinks has spurred other major players like Taco Bell and Starbucks to break into the $100 billion market. And last but not least, rising car prices are causing a big challenge for American buyers. The average new vehicle now costs nearly $50,000, 30% higher than 6 years ago. And monthly payments are approaching $800. Further, the share of new vehicles listed under $30,000 has shrunk from 40% to 13% in 5 years, according to car gurus. In response to shoppers are pivoting to used cars. But that market is tightening too as owners hold on to their vehicles longer and fewer leased cars are on car lots. So there you go, guys. A couple of quick Choose Views news items on this Tuesday, April 14th, 2026. Okay, question of the day again. What do you guys as listeners think are our biggest leadership failures in American politics, and what are our biggest leadership opportunities? For the thinking folks out there, which we all are in one way or another, that's one of those questions that we have to kind of wrestle with. We talk about leadership in this country, and I look at leadership as we all are leaders. We have, and it comes to responsibility and accountability. When it comes to our politics, though, we elect people to be leaders and do things, quote, for us in this representative democracy. So I was thinking about this. I had a conversation, and you guys will hear this interview that I did with Evelyn Shin. That will air on Thursday. And we talk a little bit about leadership. We talk a little about mindset when it comes to where we need to be and how we need to be performing better as a country. So it'll be a good interview to hear what Ev has to say, and we kind of, look forward to having you guys hear that. But I wanted to ask you guys this question as well. What you think, where you think we failed and where you think we have opportunities. So let us know where you stand in that space. Elected officials have a lot to say right now about what's going on in Iran. And Senator Mark Warner was recently on CNN with Dana Bash. And we've got a couple of clips that we're going to play regarding his observations and to get an idea of what you guys think. One is on the blockade, and the other is on how does the United States get out of this war with Iran. Let's go. Thanks, Devin. Let's go with Straits.
Whether it's a blockade or some other military operation, would you support that to reopen the strait?
But I don't understand how blockading the strait is going to somehow push the Iranians into opening it. I don't get the connection there. I agree. I think actually Ambassador Haley underestimated the threat, the economic threat. We know we've got $4 a gallon gasoline. We know that 25% of the world's natural gas goes through the strait. We know a lot of aluminum does. We know that this is so devastated. Asian countries right now, they're shutting down their economies one day a week. Fertilizer costs up. And the thing I was hoping was we could come to some negotiated truce or end. But even with that, you're going to see these energy prices continue at record levels, not for weeks, but months and years. And how blockading the strait gets it open suddenly, I don't get that logic.
It sounds like, and this is reading this lengthy post and not being able to ask the president at this moment, but it sounds like they're trying to extract economic pain on Iran the way Iran is trying to do on the world. I do want to ask you about what the president has said.
But Dana, just one quick thing there, though.
Yeah.
You know, here is the irony of this. When the president decided to release the sanctions on the Iranian oil that was already at sea, we literally gave the Iranian regime $14 billion. We are helping the Iranians fund their effort to attack us, to attack Israel, and to attack our allies. That is the most crazy upside down kind of policy I can possibly imagine. So, you know, if you want to strangle Iran, why relieve the sanctions on their oil? It's crazy.
Yeah. This is, again, one of those moments where you just have to stop and say, there was no plan. There was no strategy. It was just, let's pull the trigger and go after Iran because we don't want to deal with issues really here at home and create further distraction. That's what this is really about. And like I said a number of times now, distraction from Epstein, distraction from medical coverage, distraction from the tariffs, distraction from a concerned economy, distractions from immigration, and specifically the terror that ISIS brought, distractions from TSA. All of those things are what's happening here. And when you don't have a plan or true strategy, then you just willy-nilly go off and do crazy things. So this is why you look at this and you think about what Senator Warner said. We're financing. Just think about this. We're financing this war real time and giving Iran money to fight back against us. Meanwhile, there's mamas and daddies and uncles and aunties and babies and sisters and brothers that can't pay for this, that, or the other. That's just absolute. I mean, Republicans who voted for this should be at the White House gates with pitchforks, axes, and all the rest. And I'm not calling for violence. I'm saying they should be the ones yelling the loudest. That's 78 million people. That's where this really should be. Let's hit them with the second one if we can real quick, Devin. Do we have enough time or do we not? Not quite.
You have a lot of access to intelligence. You were one of the few people in this country who has, or at least presumably you know what's going on the ground there. Given that, how do you think the U.S. gets out of this war?
You know,
yeah, we'll get back to that clip before we hopefully before the end of the show today. But we're going to take a quick break because we got to get our guest in as well. The number, of course, is 773-763-9278. You're listening to Choose Views on WCPT AM 820 in Chicago and WARR 1520 AM and 103.5 FM from Warren County, North Carolina. And now, AM 950, the progressive voice of Minnesota. I'm Richard Chu. And when we come back, we will be talking with Daniel DePetris, who will be giving us the updates on what's happening with this blockade, NATO, and a few other things that are happening. I'm Richard Chu. We'll be right back.
What if you didn't follow the path everyone else takes? Would you rather make your own way or spend your life saying, what if? Life is calling. How far will you go? Peace Corps. To find out more, call 1-800-424-8580 or go to peacecorps.gov.
Take every road by storm and feel the exhilarating performance in a brand new Porsche from the Porsche Exchange in Highland Park. Browse and test drive our extensive selection, like the 2026 Porsche Macan Electric. Right now, lease the 2026 Macan Electric for only $1049 a month for 39 months. Discover performance like no other when you visit the Porsche Exchange in Highland Park or PorscheExchange.com. $9,999 due at signing for qualified buyers. Excludes tax, title, license, and doc fee. No security deposit required. Expires 4/30/26.
Are you looking for more in this world? Are you ready for something bigger? Then we are looking for you. The big-hearted, the bold, the messy and the gutsy, the teachers, the growers, the builders, the skilled, the sharers, the change makers. We need you. We are the Peace Corps. In more than 60 countries, we go all in and all out. We are volunteers, partners, communities, working together, living together, bringing our experience, passion, and joy to building a better world together. From tackling climate change in Mexico to keeping kids healthy in Kenya. From sustainable farming in the Philippines to education in Kosovo. We learn more, give more, share freely, and serve boldly. Are you ready to tackle the tough stuff? To go the distance to make a difference? Then we have a place where you belong. Join us at peacecorps.gov.
Let's take a moment to breathe. Deep inhale. Extend your spine. Remain focused on what you're doing. If safe to do so, exhale slowly, leaning to one side. Inhale back to center. If safe to do so, exhale slowly to the opposite side. Find mental health resources at loveyourmindtoday.org. This message is brought to you by the Huntsman Mental Health Institute and the Ad Council.
You're listening to WCPT 820. Here's the latest Chicago weather update.
From the Weatherology Weather Center, I'm meteorologist Jennifer Wojcicki. We'll see a few scattered showers and thunderstorms here for today with cloudy skies, a high around 80 degrees. Winds out of the northeast around 10 to 15 miles per hour, gusting as high as 30. Tonight, a chance for showers and storms, cloudy, a low near 64. By Wednesday, a chance for showers and thunderstorms, cloudy, high of 75 degrees. Thursday, another chance for rain with a high around 71. That's your latest Chicago weather update. Currently, it's 60.
Because facts matter. You're listening to WCPT 820.
It's Choose Views, where we read more than just the headline. Now here's your host, Richard Chu.
Hey guys, welcome back to the show. If you are just tuning in, this is Choose Views, and I'm Richard Chu. We have always said that the most, I guess, the biggest thing we should be doing is digging for more information and trying to find more people to talk with about the strategy or lack thereof currently with this war, and frankly, anything that's going on with our national defense. And with us this morning is a gentleman who spends a lot of his time in that space. He's a fellow with defense priorities, and he's also a foreign affairs columnist at the Chicago Tribune, Newsweek, Spectator, a number of places. With us, Daniel DePetris. Good morning, sir. How you doing this morning?
Good morning, Richard. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. I'm glad you can be with us. Daniel, take just a quick second and let folks know a little bit about who you are, and then we're going to dive real quickly into some topics that I know that are important to us right now.
Sure. Yeah, as you said in the opening, I'm a fellow at Defense Priorities, which is basically a Washington think tank specializing in U.S. national security policy and how the United States navigates what is becoming an increasingly more violent and difficult world, seemingly every other week. And as you know, I've been writing several columns in different outlets, Newsweek, Chicago Tribune, every week. So that's basically where my head is at for most of the day is what is the United States doing to combat the various threats that it faces on a daily basis, and more importantly, what should it not do to complicate itself and then kind of safeguard its interests around the world.
One of the things that right before we came on, Daniel, I was talking about a clip that we played from Senator Mark Warner, who was talking about the blockade and how, he was asked a question by Donna Bash if it will work. And his position was, why should we even have the need to do it in the first place? And I want to get your take on that. I know that you had a great piece that you recently posted about the blockade. Give us your insight, your observations about that. Take it from there. I want to hear what you have to say about where we should be in this space.
Sure. I mean, I think it's pretty obvious that the Trump administration thinks that kind of blockading Iranian ports along the Strait of Hormuz and along the northern Arabian Gulf is basically just another way to pressure them into negotiations on U.S. terms. And, as you know, last weekend we had Vice President Vance travel to Islamabad, Pakistan, to speak with the Iranian foreign minister and the Speaker of Parliament to try to negotiate some sort of extension of the ceasefire that's currently in place, and to kind of ideally strike a wider agreement to end the conflict. We didn't get that. Obviously, Vance came up after 21 hours of negotiations and said, hey, we made some progress, but not enough progress. And less than 5 hours, President Trump basically institutes this naval blockade along one of the world's critical arteries. I think Senator Warner is correct that it probably is not going to work. We have ample evidence of the Iranians, how they respond to pressure, and that's essentially doubling down on resistance and pressure of their own. The administration, for whatever reasons, decided to double down on its previous strategy of coercion, hoping that the Iranians eventually capitulate to what it wants to do, which is basically no Iranian nuclear program, no more support to proxies around the region. And like Senator Warner, I'm just very skeptical that it's going to work in the end. And there are costs that we can maybe delve into if you choose to go that route. But yeah, I mean, it's sort of a desperate move, I think, by the administration to kind of focus the Iranians into negotiating on our terms. I don't think it's going to work.
Yeah. Hey, Daniel, we're having a little bit of a connection issue with something either on your end or our end. So we're going to do a little bit of on the fly fix. So what we're going to do, we're going to take a call, but our tech guys here, our board ops, are going to redirect your call back into the system. So sit tight while we're going to take this call. They're going to redial your number so that we make sure that we've got a good connection, because what you're saying is too doggone important. All right, let's go to Dan real quickly. Hey, Dan, good morning. Welcome to Choose Views.
Good morning, sir. Yes, I enjoy your conversation. I enjoy your radio station also immensely, because I think it's a highly critical radio station and leading radio station. Some of the other stations I'm picking up, because I listen to all of them, seem a little more sluggery.
You mean us or the other ones?
Oh, no, you don't at all. No, highly critical, questioning for thinking people, Some of the other ones aren't so much, more dictatorial kind of stations that I'm picking up, even though I love LS and the answer for various other things that they do. But some of the talk stuff gets complicated. Now, you were mentioning the political scene. I didn't want to talk about that, but you mentioned about women, men's concept of women, men's thinking of women, and so forth. And I remember when I first started working, I thought in the beginning of the Women's Lib, I thought all women were against me, the way they acted. Mm-hmm. But as I grow older, I find that I would trust women to do a lot more. I think they're more ethical, more moral, and more reasonable than some.
It's interesting.
Men, even though I'm a man myself, I mean, I just feel that I talk to women. I know who they are. They can be a little gamesy, but I think they're more. I would tend to trust them more. And as far as the abortion thing goes, too, my mother told me when I was young, and I still remember her telling me, even though she was kind of a crazy person, was it takes two to tango.
Yeah, that's that. Dan, thank you for the call. We appreciate you taking the time out to reach out to us and give us a shout out in your contribution this morning. All right, we're going to go back to another Daniel DePetris. I hope our connection's a little bit better, Daniel, this time. I wanted to make sure we were hearing what you were saying, and it was a little bit of static, and I didn't like that. So thanks for hanging out with us while we fix that little problem. You back with us, Dan?
I can hear you perfectly, Richard. Thank you.
All right, good deal. All right, so we think we should be on a better signal now. So so many of us are saying a similar thing. We didn't need to be here, according to what they told us was the reasons that we were going in the first place. That wasn't. I mean, anybody in their right mind that isn't being uber partisan can say that, should say that. We did not need to do this, and not even when we add in sort of the cost that we are now seeing that's taking place every day, just the pure lack of strategy, because now we're in this thing. And one of the other clips that we had is with Senator Warner being asked, how do we get out of this? So before we go to a real break, give us your thoughts on if we can, and if we can, how do we get out of this war that we're in?
Yeah, first of all, Richard, I think you're 100% correct. This war did not need to happen. All of the rationales that the administration provided before the conflict started, whether it was, the fact that the Iranians are 2 weeks away from having a nuclear bomb, they have missiles capable of reaching the United States and attacking American cities. It was a very hyperbolic case that had no evidence behind it. And, I hate to make this comparison, but I think it's apt. It reminds me a little bit of the lead up to the war in Iraq more than 20 years ago, when the Bush administration was also making hyperbolic claims about Saddam's weapons of mass destruction program and his, supposed alliance with Osama bin Laden. Turned out none of it was true. And it turns out, before we went to war here, none of what the administration was telling us was particularly accurate either. The Iranians were not close to having a nuclear weapon.
Nope.
They don't have missiles reaching the United States. So there are parallels there.
Yeah.
As to how we negotiate, how we get out of this, ideally we would negotiate an agreement that actually provides Iran with an incentive to stop what it's doing right now. The thing that I worry about is the administration seems to believe that it can just force Iran to capitulate without offering concessions. And that's not how the Iranians operate. The Iranians do not bite on pressure tactics. They need to have a reason to stop the conflict. And if the administration doesn't give them an incentive, then the war is going to continue on, and we're going to see more economic blowback. And the American people are going to witness even higher, gas prices at the pump. So that's what I worry about.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And thank you for making it a little bit more plain than so many people have been across the communications globe in this space. Daniel, we don't. But yes, you're right, and I agree with you on both of your ways of how we look at this. But we don't really have the negotiators to really to get in and do the work to make this work and then have Iran trust us. I think that's a big part of this. Don't you agree? Or maybe not agree, but what are your thoughts? We don't have the negotiators to do the work where Iran can sit down and say, we can trust these folks, because I think the Iranians know that there are ulterior motives.
Yeah, the Trump administration didn't do itself any favors earlier in the year, when they were also negotiating with Iran, and then decided to, launch military operations in the middle of negotiations. And then we've done that twice. We did that the first time last June, when Trump greenlit, the precision strike against Iran's nuclear facilities. And of course, we did that late last month when we had ongoing negotiations, and Trump decided to kind of cut those talks short and go the military route. So there's no question in my mind that the Iranians are extremely suspicious of whatever the United States puts on the table. And they are also very suspicious that the Americans will actually, fulfill their end of the bargain. And my job here isn't to defend the Iranians. They have their own problems, and they've been destabilizing actors in the region for close to 4 decades now. But, if we're going to be honest, they have a point to be suspicious and kind of a little cynical about what Trump offers them. And that's just, it just adds another wrinkle to these settlement talks. And,
it makes it that much harder. Yeah. Daniel, we're going to take a quick break. You're listening to Choose Views on WCPT AM 820 in Chicago, WARR 1520 AM and 103.5 FM from Warren County, North Carolina, and now AM 950, the progressive voice of Minnesota. I'm Richard Chu. We're talking with Daniel DePetris, and we'll be right back.
This is WCPT telling you how you can shop blue. If you have children, they are always going to be your special bundle of joy. And if they're a newborn baby, you want to make sure what's best for them. So here are the best baby product companies that support the Democratic Party. Procter & Gamble. Now, Procter & Gamble owns Love's, Pampers, and All Good. In 2024, Procter & Gamble gave $599,000 to the Democratic Party, 61% of their donations. Procter & Gamble supports the Democratic Party. Kirkland Diapers. Now, Kirkland Diapers are owned by First Quality. And First Quality does not give to politics, but their employees do, and their employees lean slightly to the left, as $50,000 are donated to Democrats in 2024. This has been WCPT telling you how you can shop blue.
For the longest time, it was hard for me to even get out of the house, much less do a backside 180. It took me a bit to understand what was going on, but eventually I learned I had anxiety. Now I'm getting help for it and feeling so much better. Sure, some days are better than others, but the whole thing about getting out of the house, that's not really an issue anymore.
Mental health care is working. See what it can do for you at mentalhealthcareworks.org. A message from the American Psychiatric Association Foundation.
A tree can be a warrior, battling global challenges with greater courage. A tree can be a solution, cleaning our air, supporting our communities, and protecting our wildlife. A tree can be noble, growing hope in every corner of the world. That's why now is the time for trees. Millions of trees. Join our planting movement at arborday.org.
Because facts matter. You're listening to WCPT 820.
We may be waking up, but we're still engaged. It's Choose Views with Richard Chu.
Hey guys, welcome back to the show and thank you for being with us. If you just tuned in, this is Choose Views and I'm Richard Chu. We're talking with fellow with the Defense Priorities Foundation and foreign affairs columnist for the Chicago Tribune, Newsweek, and many other great places, Spectator, Daniel DePetris. Daniel, listen, man, you have sometimes, I guess I'd call it a front row seat from your reporting and from the writing that you do as a columnist to so many things that are going on in this space. But tell us what you see beyond the blockade. I think one of the things that you had spoken about or written about was why Trump stepped back from the brink. Let's dive into that a little bit and what you meant by that, by the title of that article and what you see in your writing there.
Sure. I mean, before the blockade, of course, we had Trump's infamous deadline, right, where he basically threatened to, quote unquote, annihilate Iranian civilization if they didn't, capitulate to U.S. terms and kind of cooperate with the way Trump wants the country to cooperate. We didn't see that, thankfully. We didn't see a further escalation of strikes against, various things like energy facilities and power plants and bridges and things like that. And I think the reason Trump did that is twofold. Number one, there was brewing negotiations happening behind the closed doors that we personally didn't, the public did not see up until last weekend, right? And we had talks about talks. Basically, where are we going to negotiate? What is the agenda going to be, et cetera? That's the first reason. The second reason, I think, is purely political, right? And there's no question in my mind that Trump has started kind of belatedly coming to the conclusion that perhaps launching a preventive war against one of the world's largest energy producers was not a great thing for the world's energy supply, right? I mean, we have the Iranian government basically shutting down a key choke point where 1/5 of the world's oil passes on a daily basis. And of course, we see gas prices going up. I think last time I checked, it was about $1 more per gallon today than it was before the war started. That reverberates in political terms, right? This is a midterm election season. I think he sort of got to the conclusion that, if I don't actually sit down and try to hammer this thing out and find a way out of this conflict, the economic reverberations across the country are going to get worse. And that means the chances for the Republicans to actually pick up any seats this November are going to diminish even further. So there's politics and there's geopolitics involved in that decision.
So speaking of that, the ripple effects in terms of the lack of U.S. diplomacy. I mean, the attempt is there, and as I said a moment ago, and you had even more comment on it, is we don't have any real negotiators to get into this fight and do the right thing. And now we're seeing that ripple effect throughout with our allies, frankly. And tell us what you've been seeing and hearing when it comes to that conversation. Oh, okay. Let's keep. Is that better?
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, we can. Okay, keep going.
Okay. Traditionally, our allies in Europe are they're with us from 95% of the time. And in this particular case, nobody in NATO, for instance, wanted this war in the first place. And we're seeing, diplomatically, we're seeing the British, we're seeing the French, Germans, pretty much every country in NATO opposing U.S. policy in the Middle East writ large and opposing the war. That is a pretty stark difference from what we have traditionally seen over the last several decades. You have even the British, which is they're our best allies in the world right now, and have long been our best allies. They have repeatedly stated that, hey, this is not our fight. If you want our assistance, negotiate an end to the war first, and then we'll help you with the Strait of Hormuz. So we're seeing wider geopolitical impacts. We're seeing diplomatic impacts as well. And, the United States increasingly looks like it's kind of on the other side of its traditional allies in a very critical issue. And, the Iranians see that as well. That plays into their own negotiating strategy. So I think strategically this war has just been a dumpster fire for the United States. There's a lot of tactical and operational successes that the Pentagon can point to, but that doesn't necessarily translate into, a strategic victory.
Yeah, that's one of the things that I think poor leadership shows very quickly is that being tactical all the time tends to lead to mistakes because you haven't planned for what future things can happen. So there has to be a blend of tactical and strategic planning with anything, but I think particularly when it comes to quote going to war or invading or a country or strategic military strikes or whatever they're trying to use to tap dance around using the word war. And this administration clearly doesn't get that strategy. Could keep them out of hot water, and then politically there would be maybe some gains, but at least not some losses. And I think that they're going to suffer tremendously because of the global impact that, people who would be our allies are just saying, no, we can't get into this. And that's why I wanted to get your thoughts in terms of the ripple effect. Let me ask you a little bit about this gut instinct thing with Trump. He's been given, I can't think of who it was, Mark Levin. I saw an interview with Mark Levin. He talked about, how much he trusts Donald Trump and he loves his work and he, all these, glorifying statements. And one of the things that stood out to me is that he said was that, Donald Trump's got great instincts. His gut's got, he's got a good gut instincts. I've never thought that when it comes to anything strategic as a leader. Maybe when it comes to flooding the zone and dominating the media cycle, the news cycle. But when it comes to this kind of stuff, life and death, planning with the war, I don't see that at all. We'll talk a little bit about what you've seen in that space.
Yeah, with the subject of Iran, his gut instincts have been astronomically bad. You can go back to the first term when he essentially, threw the Obama negotiated nuclear agreement with Iran, which by any means was not perfect. I acknowledge it wasn't perfect, but it at least suspended Iran's nuclear program and capped a lot of its enrichment capability to the point where, the international community didn't have to worry about whether the Iranians were going to dash towards a nuclear bomb. Trump came into office during his first term and ditched that agreement, reimposed the sanctions that were lifted in that agreement, and, thought that enough economic pressure would compel Iran to basically give up in its entire nuclear program. And it did the exact opposite. Instead of giving up, the Iranians doubled down on the program and installed more centrifuges. And, and then his second term, he dealt with an issue that was even more complicated than it was when he came in his first term. So on Iran specifically, his gut instincts have been terrible. I mean, it's just there's no way around it. I mean, and this is a nonpartisan person saying it. I'm not a Republican or a Democrat. I'm not fighting for either party. This is just somebody who looks at the facts and says, hey, this is what we're watching. It's not pretty.
Yeah, I mean, I think that for all of us who want to take a sort of a nonpartisan look at this, objectively looking at the data and the things that we can say are not debatable, he would get a failing grade in so many ways, and he actually was the catalyst in this space for his own failure with Iran. And that's not being partisan. That's just looking at the data. He took away something that didn't do him any good at the time in his first term with the agreement that Obama had structured and Biden. And now he doesn't have that to lean on. So it tells me one of two things. Either this is completely idiotic, which a lot of people are saying, and or the strategy was, we stay in office for the second term, meaning the 2020 term, then we're going to go into Iran anyhow. That has been lurking out there in my brain. I don't know how you look at that. That was always a plan, was to attack Iran through his relationship with Netanyahu. I thought about that a long time ago. That's always a plan. They didn't get to do that in 2020 term because he didn't win. But now that they're back in, that was always a reason to say the agreement never was going to work. What are your thoughts real quick as we wrap up?
Well, it's certainly possible, right? It's certainly possible. And with Trump, I think it was an overestimation of his own abilities. We all know Trump likes to essentially be a grandiose person and kind of exaggerate his deal-making abilities and everything like that. I think there was a real underestimation of Iran's will to resist his entreaties, and I think there was an overestimation of his own capacity to negotiate something that was more comprehensive than Obama negotiated. It's the age-old problem of, kind of an individual, being overly confident going into a problem set and finding out that, hey, this problem was a lot more difficult than I originally anticipated. I think that's what we're seeing right now.
It's been great to have you with us, Daniel. How can folks find you real quick as we wrap up?
Sure. They can find me on Twitter, Dan DePetris, and just check out Chicago Tribune every week, and you'll see me in there. There
you go. Dan DePetris, the fellow at Defense Priorities and syndicated foreign affairs columnist at the Chicago Tribune. Thanks for hanging out with us. Be well. Stay safe, my friend. We'll talk to you soon.
Thank you, Richard.
All right. 773-763-9278 is the number. You're listening to Choose Views on WCPT AM 820 in Chicago, WARR 1520 AM and 103.5 FM from Warren County, North Carolina. And for our folks up in Minneapolis, AM 950, the progressive voice of Minnesota. I'm Richard Chu. We'll be right back.
A loved one owns a gun, and for a while now, you've been concerned about their behavior. They're just not acting like themselves. They've been distant, they've been unpredictable, they've been lashing out. They've been saying things that make you worried they might harm themselves or friends or family. Or you're worried this loved one might hurt you. Maybe they recently threatened someone with their gun. You know something needs to be done, and you wish more than anything you could hit pause on this situation. Well, here in Illinois, you can, with a firearm restraining order. In extreme cases, this order temporarily prevents a person in crisis from having a firearm, giving them time to heal before they do something dangerous or even deadly. If you are worried about a loved one in crisis who has access to a firearm, learn more about firearm restraining orders at illinois.gov/pause to heal. A public service announcement brought to you by the Illinois Department of Public Health, Brady, and the Ad Council.
For the ones who get it done, Grainger offers the professional-grade products you need, delivered when and where you need them. Call, clickgrainger.com, or just stop by.
AP News, I'm Marcela Sanchez. The ambassadors of Lebanon and Israel will meet today in Washington for their country's first direct talks in decades. Lebanon is hoping for a ceasefire as a prerequisite, similar to Iran and U.S. talks brokered by Pakistan. Israel, however, has framed the talks as peace negotiations, with Hezbollah's disarmament as a priority, with no mention of a ceasefire or a withdrawal of its forces from southern Lebanon. AP correspondent Charles de Ledesma reports on reactions from the Lebanese people ahead of today's Lebanon-Israel meeting.
Residents in Beirut say they're not opposed to direct talks with Israel, but many express pessimism that they would not be fruitful. Beirut resident Bilal Keber tells the AP, "I'm with peace, this must eventually be resolved, otherwise the two sides will keep striking each other." While Haytham Kaya, another resident, says he hopes that there will be a good outcome from the talks, but that he'd never seen negotiations involving Lebanon be successful. The militant Hezbollah group has urged the state to pull out of discussions in Washington, the first such negotiations in decades. The latest round of fighting has been sparked by Hezbollah firing rockets into northern Israel on March 2 and Israel retaliating after the US and Israel attacked Iran. I'm Charles de Ledesma.
Democratic Representative Eric Swalwell of California has announced he's resigning from Congress following sexual assault and misconduct allegations that he's denied. The 7-term lawmaker dropped out of the California governor's race on Sunday. In Texas, Republican Representative Tony Gonzalez says he'll retire from Congress after bipartisan calls to expel him. Gonzalez had already said he would not seek re-election after admitting to an affair with a staff member who later died by suicide. His retirement announcement came just hours after Swalwell announced he'd be resigning. This is AP News. AP correspondent Haya Panjwani reports on a missing U.S. woman in the Bahamas.
Police in the Bahamas have released a Michigan man who said his wife disappeared after falling overboard from a small boat in waters off the island nation. Brian Hooker from Onstead had been in police custody since April 8th after being questioned by authorities. He told police that 55-year-old Lynette Hooker fell overboard the night of April 4th from their motorboat as they were traveling from Hopetown to Elbow Cay in the Bahamas. He said his wife had the keys and the boat's engine shut off, forcing him to paddle ashore. After consulting with prosecutors who recommend against filing charges at the time, with investigations continuing. I'm Maya Panjwani.
Former UConn star AZ Fudd is on her way to Dallas as the #1 pick in the WNBA draft. More stories at apnews.com. I'm Marcela Sanchez, AP News.
This is 820 AM, WCPT Willow Springs, and streaming worldwide at WCPT820.com. We are Chicago's progressive talk, where facts matter. Now, your WCPT 820 weather update.
From the Weatherology Weather Center, I'm meteorologist Jennifer Wojcicki. We'll see a few scattered showers and thunderstorms here for today with cloudy skies, a high around 80 degrees. Winds out of the northeast around 10 to 15 miles per hour, gusting as high as 30. Tonight, a chance for showers and storms, cloudy, a low near 64. By Wednesday, a chance for showers and thunderstorms, cloudy, high of 75 degrees. Thursday, another chance for rain with a high around 71. That's your latest Chicago weather update.
Currently, it's 57.
At Blaine's Farm and Fleet, we know you do things your way. So why shop the same retail giants as everyone else when you can easily find the trusted farm essentials you need at unbeatable prices? Like $2 off new Purina horse feed, 15% off Shepherd brand wheels, casters, and floor protection, and assorted Gibraltar mailboxes are on sale 20% off. Plus, come visit us at the Midwest Horse Fair April 17th through the 19th. Tickets are on sale now. Blaine's Farm and Fleet. Be an original.
How serious is youth vaping? Irreversible lung damage serious. 1 in 10 kids vape serious, which warrants a serious conversation from a serious parental figure like yourself. Not the seriously know-it-all sports dad or the seriously smart podcaster. It requires a serious conversation that is best had by you. No, seriously. The best person to talk to your child about vaping is you. To start the conversation, visit talkaboutvaping.org. Brought to you by the American Lung Association and the Ad Council.
Hey Google, play WCPT.
Streaming Chicago's progressive talk from TuneIn.
Welcome to Choose Views with Richard Chew. Get ready to dive into a world of insightful conversations and thought-provoking discussions.
As progressives, our job is to have an all-inclusive, full-on assault with all of our players.
A show that focuses on moving our political, social, economic, gender, and cultural conversation forward.
And all of our players means all of our players.
It's Choose Views. And now, here's your host, Richard Chew.
Hey, guys, welcome back to the show. Thanks for being with us this morning. It was great having Daniel DePetris with us a moment ago in the previous segment. All right, we're keeping the train moving with these smart guys that are ones that write great stuff and that give us a lot to think about in the process of covering politics and all the rest. Aaron Kleinman, who is the head of research at Heartland Signal and the author of Radio Free America's newsletter, is with us this morning. Good morning, Aaron, and welcome back to Choose Views. How are you?
Thanks, doing great. You know, just it's a little later in the afternoon, in the morning for me here in New York, but you still got me on the early side here.
Well, you know, people will chuckle like I had them up this early in the morning, depending on where they are, and you know, every now and again we have someone from the West Coast that chimes in, and
yeah,
so I
can't complain.
Yeah, no, not at all. Well, listen, man. You know, if you caught any of the conversation that I had with Daniel, you know, we were talking about what's going on with the war in Iran, and of course, the lack of strategy that is taking place, and just a complete cluster. You know what? And people's lives have been put at risk. People have died. More folks are going to die. And this weekend showed that there was no strategy. And as I said to Daniel, it's mostly tactical, and let's move over here, and now let's move over here. But give us a little bit of your broad view of that conversation. No real strategy, and we're kind of stuck in this corner. And my worry is, like one of our listeners sent me a text and said her worry is that the next thing is that, you know, we aren't going to use a nuke. Because they aren't going to get their way any other way. Or I said carpet bombing to some extent, like took place back during Vietnam. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, the lack of a strategy has put us in a situation where war crimes become a lot more plausible, especially because there are no guardrails around that. The guardrail around war crimes is supposed to be prosecution. Well, that's one of them. I mean, you know, morality, but good luck with this gang. But, you know, the threat of prosecution, hopefully, you know, kind of keeps that in check. But of course, as a country, you know, we've done a pretty bad job in the past, I think, in prosecuting those. But, you know, we have prosecuted war criminals in the past. You have like the Eddie Gallagher, Clint Lawrence types. And unfortunately, we kind of have a Secretary of Defense who kind of came up through the activist world advocating for men who had been convicted of war crimes and asking Trump to pardon them, which is a really ominous sign. So yeah, it's, you know, we saw there was the threat last week of destroying a civilization, and ultimately he backed down. Maybe the markets are the one thing that can kind of try to keep him in check now, where that really spooked the markets, and then announcing the ceasefire brought them back down. But, you know, you can only yo-yo the oil price for so long before eventually kind of the spot rates and the shortages, you know, can't just kind of be hand-waved away by, you know, kind of the market's belief that eventually there'll be a peaceful resolution here. And so we're careening to a very dangerous place.
The global economy has already shown signs that it's, you know, it's taken a hit, and many of some of our allies have said, as you've seen with the most recent conversation around NATO, and even, you know, our good friends in the UK, that they're holding their powder because they don't want to be dragged into this situation, and more importantly, they don't want to be dragged into this situation from a political standpoint, but they don't want to be dragged into this because of an economic or a livelihood standpoint, and I don't disagree with them.
Yeah, you know, in Europe, there isn't a lot of oil. You have the North Sea, and that's where kind of, you know, Brent crude. But, you know, Asia, and in particular Europe, really rely on the Persian Gulf. for a decent amount of their oil. And, it's not just oil, but also, fertilizer, for example. The fertilizer market is getting destroyed. And, Richard, I grew up in the suburbs. The most I ever planted was kind of like a few things in the garden. But even I know that you put fertilizer on the plants after you plant them, which is in the spring. So fertilizer shortage now is really bad for the Northern Hemisphere, because this is when you need the fertilizer.
Yeah.
And just, Europe's economy is more closely tied to that of the Gulf, to that of the Middle East. Like the London economy is pretty closely tied there. So of course Europe doesn't want any of this. They never, Trump never even really consulted them. I mean, the only foreign country he seemed to have consulted was Israel before doing this. He didn't go to NATO. He didn't go to any of our allies. It really kind of, to me, someone who kind of came up, as a young man, kind of experienced the push to war with Iraq. This is just so bizarre to me, because they really tried to make the case for Iraq. I didn't buy it, but they tried to make the case. And here they just kind of went out and did it. And everyone's kind of standing around trying to figure out how to pick up the pieces.
Yeah. Interesting you said that about planting and fertilizer in this time of the year. And we will feel it to some extent, but we probably aren't going to feel it until we get into the true harvest part of the season. And then even at that point, there'll still be a little bit of a lag. And the crazy thing about this, Aaron, and you know this from your research and reporting, as we get into the late summer and the fall, and we see that this hasn't changed in terms of pricing and such, cost of things, it's right before the midterms. And, it's sort of like the timing of it it's unnecessary in the first place. Yeah. And the timing of it couldn't have been even worse when you look at the extenuating effects and the dotted line effects of going to war with Iran, with the midterms being right upon us. Crazy time.
Yeah, it is. And, especially like I said earlier about the markets, there's, markets are supposed to abide by kind of, it's like rational markets. You're expecting rational players when you're in the market, and Trump's just totally irrational, and they don't know how to process it. And so they keep pricing in this idea that this thing will get resolved quickly. And kind of you can kind of see almost from a rational standpoint where just he kind of throws up his hands and says, I give up. And you need to be able to price that in. So kind of there's no kind of, so the future betting that prices will rise is kind of hedged a lot right now. But when the prices actually do rise, like when you actually have shortages of oil, when you have like kind of different levels of food inputs that make some things a lot more expensive, that's going to come kind of pretty quickly as kind of the shortages actually come, as opposed to like the market trying to price in future increases. So yeah, there could be like some real big sticker shock heading in the summer and the fall. And yeah, it's really bad. It's getting harder and harder to see how the economy gets better for Republicans, because midterm elections are, for the most part, a referendum on the popularity of the incumbent president. And so if you have a very unpopular president and the economy is really bad, and his whole shtick was, I will make it the 2019 economy again, ignore all the other stuff, which is how he got elected. If that, and, I think someone, before I go back, the last thing, someone said to me that, your first marriage is for better and for worse. Your second marriage is for better. And Donald Trump's in his second marriage. So people are less willing to write out the worst with him. So watch out.
Yeah. Wow. I'm not even going to touch that, Aaron. I'm in my first and only marriage, and I'm staying out of no. Nice try, man. I saw you trying to, Richard, come on over here, man. Come to this side of this. No way, dude. I'm not doing that. But I get your point from a political standpoint where we are. I said this a moment ago. I'm going to go to a break in a little bit, and we'll talk about this as best we can. I said that I thought that Trump, by killing the Iran deal that President Obama had put in place, that was not a strategic move, but it was one where we can call it light strategy. That they wanted to do that because the goal all along was to attack Iran. Netanyahu coming to talk to Congress. You remember when all that took place? I think that was the strategy. And when they got rid of the Iran deal, was to then say our next move is to attack Iran. That didn't happen because he didn't get reelected in 2020. However, here we are barely a year into his second term, and that's what's happened. So I think it was, if there's any strategy, it was that was their rationale behind getting rid of the Iran deal.
Yeah. I mean, his whole career has been based on he thinks he can bully anyone.
Yeah.
And he finally found a 90 million person country that has strategic control of an important economic throughway that he just can't bully.
Yeah.
So
sit tight, Aaron. We're going to take a quick break, man. The number is 773-763-9278. You're listening to Choose Views on WCPT AM 820 in Chicago and WARR 1520 AM and 103.5 FM from Warren County, North Carolina, and our good folks up in Minnesota, AM 950. I'm Richard Chu. We're talking with Aaron Kleinman, and we will be right back.
Available on gas in New Jersey and Wisconsin.
Billy, your gas light's on. We need to stop and fill up.
No way, Jen. Gas around here is too expensive. We can make it a little further.
Billy, listen to your big sister. You don't need to drive all over searching for the lowest gas prices. Do what I do and use Upside.
Upside?
Do you live under a rock, Billy? Upside is the hottest cash back app out there. It's free to download, and you get real cash back for every gallon of gas you buy. I use it all the time, and I've already made around $200.
You can make that kind of cash back just for buying the gas you have to buy anyway?
Yes, I'm looking at the Upside app now, and there's a gas station at the next exit offering 25 cents per gallon cash back.
Okay, I'm stopping to download Upside and fill up my tank. Download the free Upside app now to earn cash back every time you buy gas. Use promo code GRAVY25 to get an extra 25 cents per gallon on your first tank. You can cash out anytime right to your bank, to PayPal, or a gift card for Amazon and other brands. Just download the free Upside app and use promo code GRAVY25 for a 25 cents per gallon bonus on your first tank. That's code GRAVY25 for a 25 cents per gallon bonus.
In 1776, we defied a corrupt king, and the America we love was born from that defiance. Now it's time to do it again. America is in crisis, but patriots across the country are standing up to save her for ourselves and our posterity. Show your support with the No King's lapel pin, a 1-inch by 1-inch standard American flag lapel pin embedded with our No King symbol. So much better than that tacky red hat. It's a subtle but powerful way to say you've had enough of wannabe dictators and you're doing something about it. Every day, keep our movement going by wearing this pin that clearly says what freedom-loving Americans are thinking. There are no kings in America, and there never will be. Go to store.politicalvoicesnetwork.com. That's store.politicalvoicesnetwork.com. Get your No Kings lapel pin now.
As farmers and ranchers, stewardship of the land comes naturally. Your work keeps our water clean, improves the soil, and enhances wildlife habitat. It also provides countless benefits, not just for you and your family, but for millions of Americans who depend on this region every day without even realizing it. Thank you for being stewards of America's prairie for all of us. Take a moment to find out how conservation pays. Visit conservationpays.org.
WCPT 820, Chicago's progressive talk, where facts matter.
We may be waking up, but we're still engaged. It's Choose Views with Richard Chu.
Hey guys, welcome back to the show. If you're just tuning in, I'm Richard Chu, and this is Choose Views. We are talking with Aaron Kleinman, who is the head of research at Heartland Signal and author of Radio Free America. Aaron, before we went to the break, I was saying that where we are in this war now was maybe part of their loose strategy of attacking Iran, and clearly with the Netanyahu factor, that's continued to play out. I think that there can be some credibility to that, or credence to that. Let me ask you a couple quick questions about the a recent article that you posted about rural Republicans. This war and so many other things are hitting folks who largely voted for Trump in as big of a way as hitting people that didn't vote for Trump and this current administration and all the rest, the GOP at large. What are you seeing and hearing, though, from folks that are considered our rural citizens and voters?
Well, I think that, we think about rural America as like deeply, deeply red. And it is like more red than the rest of the country. But even in 2016, when Trump won, even though he lost the popular vote, he won rural America by 25 points. In 2024, he won rural America by 40 points. And so, so Democrats have been making big gains in the suburbs. That was the main difference there. They're doing actually a little worse in cities than they were before. But just the huge gains in the suburbs made it so that they have to get these huge margins in rural areas if they want to be viable. And again, the electoral bias, the electoral college bias, and the Senate bias in particular really kind of help them out there. So if Democrats can just lose rural areas by less, they're in actually a pretty good position. And what we saw in the recent Wisconsin Supreme Court election now, I don't think anyone thinks that Democrats are going to win the state by 20 regularly anymore. There's a huge spending disparity there, a huge enthusiasm disparity. But if you want to compare it to the last Wisconsin Supreme Court election, the biggest gains that Democrats made there and the biggest drop off in Republican votes was coming in kind of the rural northern Wisconsin. So you're thinking about like kind of timber related businesses. You have like soybean farms, maybe some dairy thrown in. These are kind of resource extraction areas that are really getting crushed, not just by the war in Iran, but also by tariffs. Tariffs really hurt this area. And again, compare it to April, the last election in Wisconsin was basically right before Liberation Day, or I think it might actually been on Liberation Day, I forget. And so since then, rural America has really taken a crack to the jaw from Trump. And so if they can't get that 40% victory in rural America anymore, it becomes really hard for them to win nationwide. And then you want to compound on top of that as well. Part of about 11% of Wisconsin is in Minnesota media markets. Those areas did a lot worse for Republicans this time around. So I think people are still pissed, especially in the Minnesota area. People are still pissed about ICE occupying Minneapolis and basically the human rights violations from that.
Wow. I did that part about the proximity. I hadn't thought about, but that's okay. So let's take that and kind of stretch it out a little bit. Do you think, or what are your thoughts on that being a thing in other parts of the country where that sort of, there's that little bit of bleed of media market and messaging that might be impacting other communities like that? Do you know what I'm trying to say in terms of what you said?
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, so, and ICE hasn't just focused on this. They haven't had really high-profile operations in Wisconsin, but ICE has had a lot of high-profile operations in kind of small meatpacking areas that have a lot of immigrants doing work that, a lot of native-born Americans don't want to do. Talking about like rural Kansas, rural Nebraska, there have been a lot of operations like that. And so, again, I don't think that rural Kansas and rural Nebraska are going to turn blue. But I think that they could be a lot less red. And by the way, Nebraska yesterday, the race ratings group, Cook Political, they moved Nebraska as more likely to vote for an independent for the Senate, an independent who might vote with Democrats on some issues as opposed to the Republican. And so, if you could kind of see fallout from both ICE raids, which, again, ICE raids also makes it hard to get farm workers. It makes it hard, and that's something where you might see come harvest time. When that becomes, we have planting time now, and then harvest time is right before the election.
Yeah.
And so if you don't have enough, if your crops are rotting in the field come harvest time, it's like, well, wait a minute, where is this getting me?
It's interesting because that's again, going back to the strategy piece. What I find interesting about it is it's almost like the Republican Party at large doesn't care, because it seems to me, Aaron, that if they did, and when I say Republican Party, let me be more accurate, the Republican elected officials on a federal and state level don't really care, because if they did, they would be the ones with the pitchforks right now going, what are you doing? I don't care if you try to come after me or primary me. You're hurting my constituents right now. Be darned what's going to happen when we get closer to the midterms. I guess I don't get how you could not see that the people that sent you to Washington or to the state that you represent as a Republican, that they're not, because of what you just said about geographics. I don't know. I don't get it, Aaron. I don't know what your take is on that. They're not standing up for them at all.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think part of it's just practice. I mean, rural, it's not a particularly new thing that a lot of these rural areas, especially once you get out of like the upper Midwest, like the rural kind of West, you think about like the farm belt from North Dakota down to Texas, those rural cows have been voting Republican for basically a century.
Yeah.
And just, it's part of practice. There's certainly, rural areas are more likely to align with kind of the right-wing cultural view.
Mm-hmm.
But, that's one of those things where,
so does it really start there then? And, because you think about, let's talk about the economics. Let's not talk about culture. But oftentimes that's the lean to, rather, that they go back to, and not the economy.
Yeah, but, it was kind of, part of the alliance there was, they would, Republicans use cultural issues there, but they had kind of a major kind of alignment with big agricultural, with farmers and agricultural concerns, like on economic issues. And in the past, that meant kind of, free trade,
Mm-hmm.
strong Navy, making sure that, your products can get everywhere. And that's kind of gone out the window. And then also you have RFK Jr. with the MAHA agenda. Honestly, the MAHA agenda is actually kind of a sop to like basically cattle. Like he's like, oh, put beef tallow and everything. Well, yeah, and that's basically, you're helping JBL, a giant Brazilian cattle, concern.
Yeah.
But he's really attacking, what he calls hyper processed foods, ultra processed foods. That's like General Mills, ConAgra, Kraft, Monsanto, or not Monsanto, Bayer now, but like all these kind of major food conglomerates, and he's kind of going after them. And by the way, there's not necessarily any like major nutritional difference between a processed food. Like there could be a good processed food and a bad non-processed. Like, a waffle is very processed. It's still healthier for you than a hamburger.
Yeah. Or the bun, certainly the bun that may go on the burger that's been overly buttered. And so now that baked, not in a processed way. Yeah, I get your point. Aaron, let me, first of all, we got to do this. I say this all the time. We got to do this more often. But let me get this real quick in, because I know we got to get to the bottom of the hour. Talk a little bit about Radio Free America, what's happening with the newsletter and how it's going. I want people to be able to be more plugged into it.
Yeah, we love, we want to make sure that people get their news however they want. If that's on radio, that's great. It's on YouTube clips, that's great. And we want to make sure we have newsletters so people figure out what's going on in the world. So if you go to heartlandsignal.com, you can sign up for Radio Free America every week, unless I'm on vacation. You get kind of my views on the world, but also updates on and we really try to focus on stories that are outside Washington, D.C.
Right on.
Because there's so many people writing about Trump, writing about what's going on in D.C., and I think the stories that go on outside it are way more undercovered. Like, what we just talked about here, those election votes in rural Wisconsin. I haven't seen a lot of people talk about that on CNN, but that's way more important than, the latest Truth Social post.
Aaron Kleinman, who is the head of research at heartlandsignal.com and author of Radio Free America newsletter. Thanks for hanging out with us, man. We got to take this break. 773-763-9278. You're listening to Choose Views on WCPT, AM 820 in Chicago, WARR 1520 AM and 103.5 FM from Warren County, North Carolina, and AM 950 up in Minnesota. I'm Richard Chu. We'll be right back.
Whoa there. Where do you think you two are going? This is a union-only job site.
Hi, we're from ABOC, a leading business and labor union bank founded over 100 years ago in Chicago.
Good to know. We only let union members on this site.
ABOC was founded by labor union members. We have union leaders on our board and union employees to this day.
Okay, you've got my attention.
As you know, labor union banking requires experience and expertise.
Tell me about it.
Hi there. Labor unions get the
advantage of our oversight and regulatory experience.
Get to the good part.
Hundreds of labor unions trust ABOC for their banking, including treasury management, investments, and construction loans like this one.
You worked on this job?
We sure did. Just ask your boss.
Okay, why didn't you say so? Come on in.
Thanks.
Hey, don't forget your hard hats.
Trust ABOC, the bank for labor unions.
Hey, learn more at ABOC.com. ABOC is the brand name for Amalgamated Bank of Chicago. Member, FDIC.
We asked parents who adopted teens to share their journey.
I think my biggest challenge was getting through to him to understand that love is real and you have goals in mind, you have things that want to happen, and I want to help you get there.
Sometimes people tend to shy away from wanting to adopt teenagers because they feel like they've lost so much, but there's still so much to gain.
Just knowing that there's just that other person that cares and loves me out there, it feels great. And they've done so much for me, and I can only be appreciative every single day for just having them in my life.
I think it's been the best decision because I gained a son, and he's the best son ever. If I was down and out, he'd be there.
Learn about adopting a teen from foster care. You can't imagine the reward. Visit adoptuskids.org to learn more. A message brought to you by Adopt U.S. Kids, the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, and the Ad Council.
You're listening to WCPT 820. Here's the latest Chicago weather update.
From the Weatherology Weather Center, I'm meteorologist Jennifer Wojcicki. We'll see a few scattered showers and thunderstorms here for today with cloudy skies, a high around 80 degrees. Winds out of the northeast around 10 to 15 miles per hour, gusting as high as 30. Tonight, a chance for showers and storms, cloudy, a low near 64. By Wednesday, a chance for showers and thunderstorms, cloudy, high of 75 degrees. Thursday, another chance for rain with a high around 71. That's your latest Chicago weather update.
Currently, it's 57.
This is WCPT 820, where facts matter.
You're listening to Chew's Views with Richard Chew. Take it away, Richard.
Yes, we are back, and we are having too much fun today in the studio. So thank you guys for hanging out with us. We had a couple of, little sound issues here and there, but that's just part of live radio. It doesn't get any better than, I think, live radio because you got to keep going with it. And somebody's in their car going, "What did they just say?" Thanks to Aaron Kleinman for hanging out with us this morning, and to Daniel DePetris for being with us. Our bench, I say this often because it's true and I mean it. We have a great bench, whether it be folks that are elected, currently sitting in an office, or one that's running for a new office. And in this case, there's a gentleman down in Tennessee that is running for the next step, candidate for Congress in the 9th District of Tennessee. But currently, Tennessee State Representative Justin J. Pearson, J standing for Jamal. See, I did my research. I know the man's name. Justin, welcome to the show.
Hey there. So good to be with you.
Yeah, so good to be with you, man. Every time I look up and, in terms of what you're doing, what's just so phenomenal is you just keep fighting. I mean, with all the hell you guys caught, in the recent years, and you just kept fighting. And what's so great and unique about it is that you weren't necessarily, the attacks came to you, but you were fighting. They came because you were fighting for other people. They didn't come to you because something specifically happened to you necessarily, but you were fighting for folks. What does that feel like, being the young political cat that you are?
Again, thank you so much for having me here. And I think two things really come to mind. One is, I think that's the job, right? That you fight for people and your constituents. You speak up for them, you work, you organize, you build power for them. And then the second part is recognizing the humanity of it all, that even though people are attacking me, I've got a family, and oftentimes people try and loop them in. And so I'm always deeply concerned about the effect this might have on my wife, my parents, and things like that. But I think this is the job. It's to stand up for the marginalized. It's to stand up for poor people. It's to stand up for women. It's to stand up for Black folks, Latina folks, And whenever we are seeing injustices happen in our communities, it's the responsibility of the elected officials to raise the issues, to advocate, to be an activist, to fight for your people who are, not getting the resources they need for summer EBT, who are being killed by ICE agents, who are being deprived of veterans benefits. Well, I mean, what are you doing in the position if all you're doing is just going along to get along? And I think people are tired of that. And my constituents have sent me back 6 times now in primary and general elections because they believe that we need to have somebody who's going to fight for us.
Yeah, and you've definitely represented that. You guys have got some crazy things going on in Tennessee. I think I know every state does, and depending on where you are in a particular state, even if it's blue, you're going to have some craziness happening. Illinois is a good example. We're a blue state, but sometimes our downstate and our Chicago metro area don't always get along. And you've got some, I guess the phrase is, promises that have been made by a lot of folks that are in office in a predominantly Republican state have not really been kept. I mean, talk a little bit about what you see as a representative there of the legislature, where your colleagues make these promises that they run on, and they do literally not. They almost put the car in reverse and go backwards and start taking away some of the things that they actually ran on to say that they were going to do better at. Does that make sense?
That does make sense. And it is very apparent. And I'll give you a really good example. Just yesterday, my colleagues passed a bill allowing private schools to get vouchers from $7,500 to $10,000. And the majority of people who use those vouchers already have kids in private schools. And they limited it so that only a few of those scholarships are going to go to poor people. But then there's no income cap for the rest of folks. And so you have multimillionaires and billionaires who are getting a discount from the government, $7,500 to $10,000, to fund them sending their kid to private school. And you had one guy who had a mansion in Belle Meade who said, thank you all so much for paying for my summer vacation.
He actually said that?
Yeah, he said that to one of my colleagues. And so you have people who say, oh, I'm going to care about working class people. I'm going to care about the issues in our community, fighting for public education, making sure every kid gets the education that they deserve. But then they take $300 million from our budget and give it to the wealthiest and the most well-to-do people in our state, while simultaneously they refuse to fund the summer EBT program because the governor said it's too expensive and it only costs $5.75 million. But that would have guaranteed that all 700,000 poor kids wouldn't be hungry this summer because their parents would get access to EBT. And so on one hand, you talk about fiscal conservatism until it actually requires you to be fiscally conservative. And on the other hand, you say you care about your community until the rubber meets the road and you abandon your community. And that lack of unprincipledness, that lack of care and concern about the people who are most poor in our communities, it's what's leaving us with a status quo that is detrimental to our lives.
Yeah. I've always said that I can go back to my 20s where I've said for the longest time, the Republican Party is not a conservative party, frankly, at all, particularly when it comes to economics. They are a party that is about consolidation, not conservatism. And I can give examples as long as I am tall of the Republican Party has never, not in my lifetime, really been a conservative party. They consolidate, and by consolidating, it makes it sound like or seem like they're conservative in terms of their fiscal quote-unquote responsibility, and in fact, they're not. And what you just gave as an example is a perfect example of them not, because all they did is they consolidated resources to a narrow group of people that would benefit from them. Meanwhile, other folk are not, and they're actually, and this is what's so stupid about the Republicans and getting people to believe that they're conservative and fiscally responsible. In actuality, if you don't invest in things, then those things will end up being a drag on you. Just use a house as an example. If you don't repair that dripping whatever, you got a bigger problem. And that's how I really see the Republican Party, is that they consolidate. They put it over here. They don't allow anybody else to be part of. Those areas then suffer, and then we actually have to spend more money to fix the problem that they created. What say you, my friend?
That's right. We have to fix the problem that they created, and we have to deal with them saying, "Oh, look how bad things are there." Right? Like this is the lack of care, the lack of investment, the lack of work to actually improve our communities. Then becomes how they get to blame us and give them more reason to take over, like they're trying to take over our school board right now. It gives them more reason for preemptive laws. It's like your disinvestment is the problem, which is why I was one of the first elected officials to stand up against Donald Trump's occupation of our community, because we don't need a federal occupation with all these different agencies, ICE and Customs and Border Patrol and these people. What we need is investment. What we need is poverty eradication. You want to deal with crime? You want to talk about violence? Let's talk about poverty and the fact that the majority of people who are living in our community are near or below the poverty line. 24% of adults are underneath the poverty line. 38.8% of our kids are underneath the poverty line. We have to address the systemic problems, and instead we get a Congress, we get a president, we get a state house that is telling us there's just a deficiency in you, instead of the truth of the matter, which is you all have made us deficient by not giving us the investments that we need. And you're spot on.
And it's not just the culture. It is largely, and most of the time, primarily cultural or racial, if you want to put it that way. But in many parts of the country, it's not. And you are in a state where you've got dozens of examples of, for lack of better words, poor, represented financially white folks.
That's right.
Who they're suffering because of the lack of investment, the disinvestment, the drug problems that are there in rural Tennessee.
That's right.
But that's not, those are white folks that are not being invested in. So the part of me that goes, okay, I'm going to be in the middle of this from a cultural standpoint or a racial standpoint says Republicans tend to be at the tip of the spear when it comes to that. Am I crazy, Justin, this morning?
No, so we literally had research coming out by Dr. Elena De La Vega talking about poverty. White poverty is what's driving our poverty numbers in the state of Tennessee.
Yeah.
That's what's driving the increase. There are more white folks who are on EBT than SNAP than everybody else.
Yeah.
Right?
Everybody else.
And everybody else. So when we're talking about who is poor and where the poverty is, it is concentrated in white communities, and yet their elected officials don't want to do a single thing to help them get out of poverty. Instead, they want to blame immigrants. They want to blame Black people. They want to blame DEI instead of the billionaires who keep extracting wealth out of poor people's body and poor people's pockets with a minimum wage that's $7.25 or $10 that is impossible to live on, impossible to build a family on. Instead of addressing the billionaires and the multimillionaire class of people who are extracting the wealth out of them, they want to create and foment these culture wars because they think if we can get them to argue against each other about race or about sex or about homosexuality or about all these other things, then they'll never pay attention to who is actually destroying them, destroying their communities and destroying their lives. And that's why we got to have a people power movement in our states and across this country that really shows who is benefiting from our oppression.
When we're going to take a break in a couple minutes, but when we come back from the break, I want to make sure we talk about your campaign, and we'll get to that in the second half of this segment. But what I want to come to before we go to the break real quickly, Justin, is in this conversation around the imbalance, economic imbalance in your state and what Republicans are doing to create more and more harm. Are you seeing, I mean, Memphis is your home city where you were born and such, but are you seeing that the rural areas, because Aaron and I were talking about this before, where there might be a higher population of white folks, are you seeing that they are saying, hey, wait a minute, this young cat is somebody that I can kind of believe in, even though he's a metro guy? Do you get the tenor of my question?
Absolutely. And yes, I am one of the only elected officials who actually goes to our rural areas and holds town halls. and we've got a couple more that are coming in the next month or so. But that proximity is what gives us and builds power, because we need to show that it isn't an urban versus rural area. It's about working class people versus the extraordinarily, exorbitantly wealthy who don't want to see us progress into the middle class, who don't want to see us eradicating poverty and helping our children in our communities. And so I've been fortunate that our coalition is diverse. We got white folk, we got black folk, we got rural, we got urban, suburban, who say, you know what, now's the time for new energy and a new direction in our country.
Justin, we're going to take a quick break. The number is 773-763-9278. You're listening to Choose Views on WCPT AM 820 in Chicago and WARR 1520 AM in North Carolina, particularly Warren County, North Carolina. And now AM 950 up in the great state of Minnesota. I'm Richard Chu. We're talking with Justin J. Pearson in Tennessee, and we will be right back.
This is a WCPT Veteran Minute. In the mid-1800s, many American women were expected to follow what history calls the cult of true womanhood, where men would go off to work and women would stay home, taking care of the house, their children, and husbands. During the Civil War, many women left their homes to join the fight. Thousands of women from the North and South volunteered to join brigades, while over 400 women disguised themselves as men to fight in the war. In the Union, 20,000 white and African American women worked as nurses, traveling from hospital to hospital, offering care to wounded soldiers, even helping to convince the government to create the United States Sanitary Commission to create a preventive, hygienic, and sanitary service for the benefit of the Army. During the Civil War, women were faced with new duties, challenging many men's minds to what should be a proper woman's place.
The key to unlock the next breakthrough in life-saving cancer research could be sitting in your driveway. Stand Up to Cancer's vehicle donation program makes it easy to turn your unwanted vehicle into funding to support innovative cancer research. These innovations lead to better cancer prevention, diagnosis, and treatment, which means we can help save lives right now. Cancer affects all of us. Today alone, 5,370 people in the United States will be diagnosed with cancer. It will take all of us standing up together to put an end to it. So when you're looking to get rid of your old car, truck, motorcycle, RV, or boat, why not donate it to Stand Up to Cancer? Donating is easy and tax deductible. We'll even tow your vehicle for free. You can be a driving force in cancer research. Donate your car today. Visit standuptocancer.org/cars to learn more.
You're listening to WCPT 820 because facts matter.
Mike's on, truth's out. This is Choose Views with Richard Chu.
Hey guys, welcome back to the show. In case you just tuned in, I'm Richard Chu, and this is Choose Views, and we are talking with Justin J. Pearson, who is currently Tennessee State Representative and now candidate for Congress in the 9th District in Tennessee. So, Justin, you've thrown your hat into the ring for that the big house. We'll have some fun with those words. You've thrown your hat in the ring for this race, and the primary is an interesting one where we've got a kind of a generational conversation. I think that the primary it's against a person that's 76 and you're 31, 32. Is that right? So generational shift is taking place in politics no matter how we look at it. But even some folks in our party are kind of standing, not in the way, but you know, they're not recognizing that they were once that age and that they were once aspiring to be the next leader. But let's talk about why you're running and what you believe or what you know you're bringing to the table and bringing to this fight.
Yeah. One, I am so humbled and grateful to be running for Congress for District 9, which represents Memphis, Shelby County, and half of Tipton County. And I love this community. This district made me into who I am. It is where I've been born, raised, where I graduated high school, and where I've been fortunate to be of service these last several years as a state representative. But truly, the reason that I'm in this fight and in this race is because the issues that we are dealing with are too entrenched for us to continue to keep going in this direction. I've mentioned to you the levels of poverty that we're experiencing. I got research now that we need 55,000 units of housing for people who make just $17,000 a year. And I've worked with veterans every month, and they are missing over $300 million in benefits and compensation in Memphis and Shelby County. So we can't afford to wait. And the truth of the matter is the people who have gotten us to this place are not going to be able to get us out of it. And we appreciate their service and their dedication and their time. But there's a recognition that there is a moment that we are in right now that requires more than press releases and press conferences. We have to have people who can organize, people who know how to fight, people who know how to find common ground without compromising their values. And, I've been able to show that, whether it was me being 15 years old fighting for textbooks in my high school to, defeating multi-billion-dollar crude oil pipelines to standing up against the NRA when they wanted to allow a horrible mass shooting to end with no results. We were able to force the governor to sign an executive order mandating that there are background checks for everybody who purchases a firearm in our state. That's what we need. We need leadership, active leadership right now, and not this passive leadership we've been getting.
That seems to be kind of the sentiment throughout the country. And I've said this many times on my show, Justin, that it's not just or solely chronological youth that we need. It's idea and action youth and mindset. Because somebody that's 20 years older than you, that's 51, 52 years of age, can be equally upbeat, energetic, creative, and ready to get the job done. Frankly, a 71-year-old can be. But I think it's the ideas and the connection of those ideas to the voting community that so many people are craving be brought to the table. What are your thoughts about that?
I think that's absolutely right. And I remind people, this is about energy, the energy that you can bring, the ideas. And part of what I tell people, we just need new ideas. We need new energy. We need a new perspective. We need a new direction because the status quo is not working for the mass majority of people. It keeps working for people who are currently in Congress, whether they're 77 or 87, because they're doing things like trading stocks and becoming multimillionaire. My opponent's become a multimillionaire 10 times over by trading stocks while being up there. And so they may be benefiting, but the community that they are no longer as proximate to is not benefiting in the same way. And I tell people, my mentor was 93 years old when she passed away. She was a state representative. She served in this seat, District 86, for 26 years. And I voted for her in the primary when she was 93. Why? She was the hardest working elected official I'd ever met in my life. She would text and call at 11 o'clock at night, 1 o'clock in the morning. You still up? Let's send me some information about this, right? Like that type of energy is what is required in this moment. And the truth of the matter is that's not what we have right now with the person who's currently in office. Again, done his best, but he doesn't have the energy that we need to meet this moment. And I'm not just worried about, can you stand up and write a letter against Trump? That isn't what Democrats need to be focusing on. We need to be focusing on building a people-powered movement that fights authoritarianism, fascism, and this oligarchy that is being instituted by tech billionaires, oil companies, pharmaceutical companies. Like, it is time for us to build power so that we change and transform the direction that our country is going in. I'm not worried about just what committee are you sitting on. I'm worried about what country we're going to be leaving to our great-great-grandkids. I was talking to my wife. She's talking to me about like a birthing plan because we're going to have kids in a couple of years. I was just thinking, my kids are going to turn elderly in the 22nd century.
Wow.
My grandkids are going to turn middle aged in the 22nd century. And my great grandkids are going to be young adults in the 22nd century. What are we doing today to make sure that that 22nd century they live into is a better one? That's what we have to be focusing on. That's why we need someone with a vision about the future and not just worried about what's happening right now.
So here's a question that I ask a lot of folks who are going from a state representative or state legislative role, or new to going to U.S. Congress, as it were, you were to win this seat, and now you're there. You're new on the block, and I was talking with Congressman Mike Quigley from here in Illinois last week about this, in terms of folks going from one level to the next and being able to hit the ground running. I use this phrase a lot, Justin. You do have to be willing to walk in the door and knock some tables over, and you can't sit back and wait, because there is too much at risk right now, too much that's important. How are you going to prepare yourself and steel yourself for that reality if you were to win this seat?
I mean, look, the Tennessee General House of Representatives has been the best training ground for the U.S. House of Representatives. I mean, in D.C., it's not a supermajority, right? Like, I've experienced the worst of the worst and still been able to find ways to move policy and ideas forward. You just figure out how to work even within systems that don't seem to be designed for you. I mean, to the point where I'm working on an initiative called Activate Tennessee to get our 700,000 people who are inactive voters to be registered voters. And I went to the Secretary of State's office to get the list to find out what happens, right? Like, you have to still find a way to build power. And so I got the best training ground in the country. And I do still think there's going to be a need to make sure that we disturb the status quo while also build power and serve on committees that are going to be important, particularly appropriations, because I want money to come back to my community. And you have to raise money. There's so many things that are part of the engine that you have to do. But the one thing that is not part of it that I cannot do is capitulate to the complacency that we have found in people who are serving in Congress, Democrats and Republicans, who are literally just going along to get along because they're doing fine.
Yeah,
they're no longer concerned about the people in our district who are suffering.
We got to clip that out for you to use as part of your campaign sound bites, because that's where folks need to be. I would agree with you. Your colleagues, Justin Jones and Gloria Johnson, if there were a place to be groomed, I don't want to use that word, to be trained and put in the right stead for being in Washington, you guys definitely went through it. I take it that they both are doing well at this time.
They are. I saw them yesterday. We were fighting good bills and fighting for good bills and fighting against bad bills, but representing the people who sent us there. That's the job.
Yeah, that's great to hear. Justin, couple things. We're going to wrap up. Want to have you back on the show because you're such a great, powerful voice, so energetic, so thoughtful, and thinking about the future and the people that you represent. And that's the kind of voice that we want to be able to broadcast and highlight throughout the rest of the country. So we definitely want to have you back on the show. But
I'd love to.
Yeah, let folks know how they can, if they choose to support you, or even if they just want to know more about you, how they can find you and do that.
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you so much for having me. Please go to votejustinj.com, votejustinj.com. And on social media, it's just at Justin J. Pearson on Instagram, on Facebook, and at The Real Justin J. Pearson on TikTok if you're on there. But please go to our social media, read our issues and our plans. And if you have questions, concerns, or things, that reach out to us. The email's on there at info@votejustinj.com. And if you're so inclined, please donate and donate to us, because we're not taking any corporate PAC money, and which is very different than my opponent. So it's people power campaign and movement all the way.
Thank you, Justin, for being with us. Good luck to you. We'll have you back as soon as we can. Sound good?
Sounds great to me. Thank you.
All right, man. Be well. Talk to you soon.
Talk to you soon.
Bye-bye. Guys, we're going to wrap it up, but I just want to say a couple of words before we go. I am going to be out for a couple of days, and Michelle Peltier will be with us. She is a co-host of the family meeting. Michelle will be here to do her very best to keep the message going, and of course, Henry and Mike and the rest of the team will do their part to make sure that happens. So continue to hang out with us and continue to listen. We've got some great guests lined up tomorrow, Thursday, and Friday. You've been listening to Choose Views on WCPT AM 820 in Chicago. As always, stay tuned for the Stephanie Miller Show. And remember to take a deep breath and make your life count. I will see you next week.
I'm Smokey Bear, and I made an assistant to help you out, because only you can prevent wildfires.
Hey, Assistant Smokey Bear. Call me Papa Bear, because I'm grilling up dinner. Do you get it?
Yes, good job.
So, what should I do with all these coals?
Don't just toss them out. Put them in a metal container because those embers can start a wildfire.
I understand. The stakes are high.
Ha, 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 ha.
Learn more at SmokeyBear.com.
Brought to you by the U.S. Forest Service, your state forester, and the Ad Council.
I've tried everything to stand out at work. Donuts, a company coffee blend, even dressed as the company mascot for Halloween.
There's an easier way, a ComEd facility assessment. Their engineer gave my company free insights and actions that saved us $732,000 on energy. Easy, right?
Learn how ComEd can help you save at ComEd.com/facility assessment. ComEd, powering lives. Savings will vary based on customers' usage and rate.
Ever tried balancing a dozen eggs in one hand while hopping on one foot? Or maybe juggling cats while riding the unicycle? Sounds ridiculous, right? But guess what? That's exactly what texting while driving is like. Your human brain only has the capacity to focus on one thing at a time. So when you're behind the wheel, give driving your undivided attention.
Don't drive distracted. A message brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, Project Yellow Light, and the Ad Council.
File with TurboTax on Intuit Credit Karma. They help you get your biggest refund, and then we help you do more with it. Start filing today in the Credit Karma app.
AP News, I'm Marcela Sanchez. French President Emmanuel Macron is urging for the negotiations between the U.S. and Iran to resume. Macron had phone calls with both President Trump and Iran's President Masoud Pezeshkian. In a post on X, he also said the ceasefire should be strictly respected by all parties and that it should also include Lebanon. The French president also called for the reopening of the Strait of Hormuz without restrictions or tolls. U.S. wholesale prices rose 4% last month, the most in more than 3 years, as the Iran war drives up the cost of energy. Despite promised tax relief, polling shows most Americans still think they're overpaying. The AP's Lisa Dwyer has more.
Tax refunds are up this season, but according to a Fox News poll, about 7 in 10 registered voters still say their taxes are too high. That's up from about 6 in 10 last year. Even with the expectation that many households will see more income from the Republicans' tax legislation, the Congressional Budget Office estimates that legislation will ultimately largely benefit the richest Americans. Polling shows that many Americans may not be feeling those benefits, with their tax refunds being eaten up by higher prices as the U.S. experiences a spike in inflation and sluggish economic growth. I'm Lisa Dwyer.
A county in Minnesota is investigating the arrest of a Hmong American man by federal officers as a potential case of kidnapping, burglary, and false imprisonment. Officials say they're pursuing information from the Department of Homeland Security that they need for their investigation into the arrest of Chong Lee Scott Tao on January 18th. Video shows Immigration and Customs Enforcement officers bashed open the front door of Tao's St. Paul home at gunpoint, then led him outside in just his underwear and a blanket in freezing conditions. This is AP News.
AP Sports, I'm Gethin Cool Ball. Aaron Judge homered twice, and the Yankees scored on a game-ending wild pitch in a 3-run ninth to overcome Mike Trout's 2 homers and 5 RBIs in an 11-10 win over the Angels to snap a 5-game skid.
Wild game. Went out to an early lead, and then they stormed right back, and it was just kind of back and forth, some big blows there.
AZ Fudd was drafted number 1 overall by the Dallas Wings in the WNBA draft, reuniting her with former UConn teammate and last year's top pick Paige Beckers. College basketball, North Carolina freshman Caleb Wilson is headed to the NBA draft. NHL 3-time Stanley Cup winning goaltender Jonathan Quick of the Rangers says he is retiring at age 40, and famed ESPN broadcaster Dick Vitale is facing another battle with cancer after being diagnosed with melanoma in his lung and liver cavity.
I'm Marcela Sanchez, AP.
This is 820 AM, WCPT Willow Springs, and streaming worldwide at WCPT820.com. We are Chicago's progressive talk, where facts matter. Now, your WCPT 820 weather update.
From the Weatherology Weather Center, I'm meteorologist Jennifer Wojcicki. We'll see a few scattered showers and thunderstorms here for today with cloudy skies, a high around 80 degrees. Winds out of the northeast around 10 to 15 miles per hour, gusting as high as 30. Tonight, a chance for showers and storms, cloudy, a low near 64. By Wednesday, a chance for showers and thunderstorms, cloudy, high of 75 degrees. Thursday, another chance for rain with a high around 71. That's your latest Chicago weather update.
Currently, it's 57.
This is Chicago's Progressive Talk, 820 AM, WCPT Willow Springs, and online at WCPT820.com, where facts matter.
Wendy's new Biggie Deals lets you choose whatever you're in the mood for. It's like a music mixing board of deals, and you're the producer. Go with some chill folk music with a JBC in the $4 Biggie Bite snack. Try the drum and bass of deals with a double stack in the $6 Biggie Bag. Or go full-on sandwich symphony with an $8 Biggie Bundle, the grand finale of snacking. And the best part? They all come with napkins. $4, $6, and $8 Biggie Deals how you want them at Wendy's.
Price and participation may vary. Single items at regular price. Prices may be higher in Alaska, California, and Hawaii.
Spring is here and summer heat is right around the corner. Is your home ready to stay cool and energy efficient? At Green Attic, they help Chicagoland homeowners prepare their homes for rising temperatures. With over 15 years of experience and more than 1,000 five-star reviews, Green Attic is a trusted expert in attic insulation, blow-in cellulose, spray foam, crawl space encapsulation, mold remediation, and solar attic fan installation. When the sun heats up your attic, that trapped heat can force your air conditioner to work overtime. Proper insulation and ventilation helps keep your home cooler and lowers your energy bills. Green Attic also offers full-service roofing through Green Attic Roofing, including asphalt shingles, flat roofs, Da Vinci, Brava, Cedar, Tesla solar roof, and solar panels options, all backed by the industry's 10-year labor warranty. Spring is the perfect time to fix insulation problems and aging roofs before the summer heat and storm season arrive. Schedule your free insulation consultation today at greenattic.com or get an instant roofing estimate at greenatticroofing.com. Green Attic, healthy home, happy family.
Alexa, play WCPT.
WCPT from TuneIn.